I don't believe that at any time in my lifetime have I ever seen such a big divergence between what official leaders of the United States and Israel say in public and what we can see with our own eyes, with what people who are on the ground are reporting on a daily basis, than the situation right now regarding whether there is starvation going on inside of the Gaza Strip or not. And this is obviously a much bigger issue than just, rolling your eyes about somebody lying something. There is a catastrophic situation unfolding before our eyes here that I think future generations will look back and just shame on this country and all the leaders that of across the West, not even just the United States, that continue to support and enable this kind of thing to going on. People will just wonder, how could anyone possibly have just sat passively by while this level of destruction and death can go on among allegedly intellectual, moral, compassionate societies as what's unfolding right now. But that is where we are. And I'm going to show you very graphically today. You can make up your own mind who's lying and who's telling the truth. I think the evidence will be very clear. But we're going to start off with the side that's talking about, there's no problem here at all. Here is the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, telling you there is no issue with starvation.
Israel is presented as though we are applying a campaign of starvation in Gaza. What a bold-faced lie. There is no policy of starvation in Gaza. And there is no starvation in Gaza.
There is no policy. Listen carefully. Remember those words. There is no policy of starvation by the Israeli government. There is no starvation going on in Gaza. What a bald-faced lie, he says. Well, let's examine that. Let's get into the situation there, because that's the Israeli side. Then you have President Trump yesterday saying, it's kind of a bad situation, but if there's anything wrong, it's Hamas's fault, actually.
Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene has said that what is occurring there is a genocide. Do you agree?
Oh, it's terrible what's occurring there, yeah. It's a terrible thing. People are very hungry. The United States gave $60 million for food, and it's a shame because nobody, I don't see the results of it, and we gave it to people that in theory are watching over it fairly closely. We wanted Israel to watch over it. Part of the problem is Hamas is taking the money and they're taking the food. But we gave $60 million a couple of weeks ago. Nobody said anything about it. Nobody said thank you. But I didn't need to thank you. I just wanted the people to get fed. And we're helping out financially with that situation. It's a terrible situation.
It's what a lot of people keep leaning on in the West, especially among official circles, is that if there's any problem, it's because Hamas. They're stealing the food. They're blocking it. And Trump, oddly enough, said that they're stealing money. I don't know what money he's talking about. No one's given money to the Palestinians. They're giving them food aid. But regardless, whatever's being done is being siphoned off by the Hamas. Now, I don't know how because the Israeli side claims that they have virtually decimated the Hamas, that there's hardly any of them left. So they say, but then they say, well, there's enough of them. They keep fighting. That's why we keep the so-called war going on. It's really more of just a destruction of the Gaza Strip than it is any kind of an outright conflict. More on that in a minute. But the idea that the food is being stolen, they would have no idea. Israel would have no idea. And you're also going to see that graphically in some of the video we're going to show you here shortly, to where once this food gets put on the ground, it starts going to the people. They literally have no idea. A lot of it could be going to Hamas, a little of it, none of it. We have no idea, nor do they, because you can't possibly track it once it goes. Yet, that is being claimed as an article of faith. They are definitely doing it. As though just consider the pre-war population of Palestine was 2.2 million people. Allegedly, according to the Israelis themselves, there were somewhere between 30 and 40,000 actual Hamas fighters in their military wing. Now, you've been fighting we're closing in, hard to believe, on 2 long years of inconclusive war, which is no closer to ending now than it was before, because that doesn't appear to be Israel's desire to actually win. It appears to be their desire to expel or kill all the Palestinian people. I know that is going to make very many people who are very pro-Israel upset. I'm sorry if that makes you upset. I'm really not sorry. Don't care if it makes you upset. That is the evidence. That's what the evidence shows. We've had many people in both on this channel and other media that have openly said so. Israeli people who live in Israel, people who are proud Israelis, people who are IDF veterans, not just talking about somebody who's like from Qatar or something or pro-Palestine. I'm talking about Israeli Jews have been saying this stuff. And they have been providing documentation for it. So if you have a problem with it, then you need to take it up with the Jews. You need to take it up with the Israelis who are reporting on this information here. And you can just accept your eyes because this stuff is all over social media, even if the mainstream media barely covers any of this stuff. There's certainly not a lot of the starvation issues going on here. But that's what we're faced with here. So you have the official Israeli statement that there is no starvation, doesn't even exist. And there is no policy from the Israeli side for a starvation. And you have the United States saying, well, it's bad, but if there's any reason it's bad, it's because of Hamas. Okay? That's the official narrative here. Now then, let's look at what's really going on here. So there is a lieutenant colonel, a retired lieutenant colonel, recently retired. I think he retired in just January officially of this year. Special Forces got Lieutenant Colonel Tony Aguilar, who went on, who's been, you've probably seen him all over the news media, but he probably the best interview, most comprehensive was on Tucker Carlson recently. And if you haven't seen that, I recommend you go see it. It's quite long, but it's also riveting information. We've selected out about 4 of what I think is the most central portions of his interview, which shows absolutely what's going on the ground and shows that there is indeed a policy, that there is a well-choreographed plan, and that is being methodically executed. This is not an accident. Whether Hamas is stealing food is a separate issue, but it's probably not marriage. But the point is there is very little going in, and there is just a campaign of terror against the Palestinian people that you probably have not heard from until you see these videos. First of all, let's see what he says here about when he went in there, because, by the way, the reason why he's giving this interview is because he went in with this humanitarian foundation that's actually providing the food aid now that Israel kicked out the World Food Program, UNRWA, who was doing it, and then now they set up this new group here. I think it's called HGA or something to that effect. But he went in, he was on the ground there. So he spent a considerable amount of time on the ground actually helping provide this aid, took a lot of photographs and videos during his time there to validate what he said. Here's what he described as what the conditions look like on the ground.
My initial perceptions of Gaza, just in terms of the physical aspect, is that I would just describe it as post-apocalyptic, something from, the akin to Terminator 2 when the T-100s are walking through the destroyed landscape. It's human depravity. It's the oppression of dignity. It's the entire area, like for example, in the south in Rafah. I saw pictures of Rafah prior to the current war, and there were nice buildings, there were beach resorts, there were street lights and neighborhoods, and now it is leveled to the ground. There is not a building that stands. And nothing I have seen in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Baghdad, in Mosul, Sadr City, all throughout Afghanistan, Syria, the southern Philippines, some places where there's dense populations. I have never witnessed anything as brutal, destructive, violent, and I would say that steps far over our international laws of how we persecute wars and how we engage in warfare. We've long departed from that standard, and America is a part of it.
That last part there's one of the first things that got me. We are a part of it. What he went on to describe there in that interview is that this humanitarian group is formed like 80% from retired or former American military personnel, contractors that are in there. So obviously they're permitted to do that by our government. The Israeli government is paying for it, and they're setting it up, I think, to try and give it the air of authenticity or make it look to the global public like somehow it's a legitimate group, but it's military guys who like him. And by the way, when he makes that statement there about how this is the worst he's seen, and he listed all these different combat places, as the special operations guy, he had 12 combat deployments of various lengths. 12. I had 4, which is a lot to me. He had 12. So he has seen a lot of combat and a lot of conflicts all over the world because he's special operations. He went in a lot of areas besides what I did there, but you heard him mention a number of them. He's never seen anything like this. And that is really saying something, because he has seen a lot of combat and he has seen some of the worst places. He mentioned Rafah, Mosul, et cetera. That's part of where the ISIS were, which both of those places were near leveled. I actually went to see part of the front lines around the Mosul area with some of the forces that were being fought there in, I think, 2015. And I saw just how awful that was. And he's saying it didn't even compare with what he's seeing there right now. So that's the landscape. Next, he wants to, let's get into the food issue itself. Now, we told you when we had the IDF former IDF soldier on our show, Omer Bartov, on last week, who has himself took part in combat operations inside Gaza many years ago. He said, yes, these food distribution centers were set to the south. Right? You may remember him saying that. Go back and watch that video. It'll add a lot to this one here. But Tony here goes into even more specific details of exactly how these food points were set up. Watch this.
One thing that struck me as concerning is that there are only 4 secure distribution sites in Gaza under the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. 4. Prior to the blockade and prior to the stopping of UN aid going in, there were 400. So out of the 4 sites that we have, only 4, 3 of them are co-located within 150 to 200 meters from each other, all of them in the far southwest corner of the enclave near the Egyptian border. It's nowhere near the people that need it. North of the Netzarim corridor, which bisects central Gaza from the north. In the north, you have Gaza City and Jabalia. That is where the population right now is the most vulnerable, where you have death, starvation. They're isolated. No aid is going into there, and there's no aid sites there. So prior to us deploying, as a prudent military planner mindset, I'm not in the Army anymore, but I didn't, I still carry the skills. I did a little bit what I would call operational preparation of the environment. I did my research, looked at Gaza, figured out the population, where the population centers were, what people ate, where they primarily lived and what they did. And I saw that, okay, well, the entire northern enclave of Gaza is cut off and isolated, and none of the sites that we've put in are in that area. So who are we providing aid to? So the 3 sites out of the 4 that are all the way down in the southern tip of the enclave, all of them are co-located or nearly located with an IDF combat unit. In that area is where the IDF is actively conducting, and this is not an opinion that anybody can refute. This is a fact. You can look it up. The IDF is currently conducting Operation Gideon's Chariots. It's an offensive operation. It's not a defensive. It's not a security. It's not an aid operation. It is an offensive combat operation, and they are conducting that in the south, where all 3 out of the 3 of 4 sites are located. We established secure distribution sites to deliver and distribute humanitarian aid, not only co-located with Israeli combat units, but located in an active combat zone. I can't make it clearer to the leadership there and to the lawyers that I've spoke with at GHF and UG Solutions that is a war crime.
You heard him say it from his own lips. That is a war crime. The way it's set up is intentionally so. Make sure you don't miss this. There had been 400 different distribution sites throughout the entire Gaza Strip before all of this madness descended. That's how UNRWA was feeding everybody. So they had it distributed all these different places. So it made it easy for people to get to this food aid. Okay. Now then they've changed it from 400 to 4. And 3 of them are, as he said, on the very southern tip, meaning that now everybody from no matter where they are in the strip, they have to walk long way just to get to it. And I think it was also when we had Omer Bartov on, talked about how Netanyahu had a plan, which he read on air, to destroy their houses when they left the northern part of Gaza, so they would have nowhere to go back to. The idea is to just totally destroy the capacity of the Gaza Strip to even sustain life, aside from the food, the starvation issue going on now. But of those only 4 in the entire strip, 3 of them were intentionally, specifically set up in front of IDF military ports that are conducting offensive operations. Now, if Israel had any intent to actually feed the people, to actually prevent the starvation, they would have them far away from their offensive operations so that they would be clear of any collateral damage. That's how ordinary combat is made. That's how the laws of warfare are written. That's what we ostensibly follow. But now here you have an American veteran who went there on the ground, a combat veteran who knows the laws of war better than anybody. And he's telling you point blank, it's a war crime. He saw it with his own eyes. He saw it set up. So when you have Netanyahu standing there in that first clip we showed, they're telling you that not only is there no starvation, there's no plan for it. That is a flat out 100% intentional lie. It's not a distortion. It's not a, reading between the lines. It's not a kind of partial truth here. No, that is full on lie, and we are buying it. We are buying it, and we are allowing him to continue to destroy a population, millions of people. They're methodically destroying this population just inch by inch as they continue more down, and we're enabling it, as you said, as you saw Colonel Aguilar there say. Okay, now that you understand that 3 of these places are right by the food distribution centers, now he's going to explain to you and show you with some of his own video that he shot exactly what that translates into on the ground.
You said you saw no threat at all. You didn't see Palestinians with weapons. You didn't feel threatened. It doesn't, I'm sure there's a threat there, but you didn't experience it. But you said that there was shooting. Who was shooting at what and why?
The way, so to walk everyone through kind of how a distribution site works in terms of like, how are people being shot at? How does this happen? So early in the morning, the Palestinians, because mind you, the Palestinians, to get to the south, they cannot drive. They have to walk one way from where they live because they have to go through the established military corridors, just one way to get to where they have to get to. They have to walk, so they can't just walk straight down to the site. They have to go west to the coastal corridor, down the coastal corridor, into the Morag corridor, down to the sites. So they're walking anywhere from 8 to 12 kilometers one way to get to the site. So when they queue up in the morning at the intersection of the Morag corridor and the coastal road, and the queuing gets into to the magnitude of thousands, the IDF hold them there with tanks in place. When the UG Solutions personnel call on the radio to the IDF to say the site is ready, the crowd is released in a massive tidal wave of people. It's dehumanizing. And rushing towards the site because they're starving. As they're coming to the site, the IDF shoot at them. Machine guns, mortars, tank rounds, artillery. I have all of this on video.
Within a matter of minutes, 2 minutes, 15 seconds, hundreds of Palestinians are already on the site.
Like, this is not like, it's so compelling when you see it. And I'm like, because I watched it, and as I'm watching it and being there, and you hear early morning hours, pre-dawn, sunrise over the Mediterranean, thousands of Palestinians rushing down to the site. And over their heads, you just see tracer bullets flying. Tracers, tank rounds, artillery rounds. And they do that to keep the Palestinians on the right path. My suggestion from the very beginning was like, have we tried a sign? Put a sign out there? Like, I don't know, like put a sign in the road that says go this way instead of shooting a Markava tank round. Like, I think that would be a great way to kind of start. Nope, cost too much. We're not going to do it. Oh, okay. That's a telling proposition. So as they're coming to the site and they're getting shot at, it's dark. The Israeli forces in the south are reserve conscripts. They're not the IDF that are in the elite active army unit. They're conscript reservists. They don't train. They don't get a lot of training. Rarely do they get to shoot their weapons. And they don't have night vision capability. So they're shooting into the dark at thousands of people. To say that when the sun rises and bodies are strewn along the road, and the IDF say, "Oh, we didn't do that." Really? Well, then, how did that happen then? Like, you did do that. Like, you did do that.
And one of the other things that the Israeli official statements say when these things happen on a daily basis, where the people are killed going into the food distribution center, the claim is almost always that, well, we felt threatened, that we fired warning shots and they didn't listen. If you've seen any of these other videos, you see there's nowhere for you to go. It's a corridor. It's blocked off either by barriers or concrete barriers or barbed wire. There's nowhere that they can get off of. So there's no truth to that. Palestinians, think about this. You heard him say there, nobody has a gun. Nobody's allowed to have weapons in there. You saw all the men. They had sacks. They wanted to get food to put it into it. Are you going to try and tell me that the Israeli Defense Forces, who have Markava tanks, automatic weapons, their machine guns that they have, their rifles, that guys with bags are going to suddenly swarm the guys who have all the tanks and the guns and the artillery and the mortars? I mean, that doesn't pass any kind of common sense. And yet, when they make those claims, it's accepted at face value. People just in the West will read that, and the reporters who report on it will just record what's written down there. They won't say what I just told you. That doesn't make any sense at all because they don't have weapons. And are you claiming, IDF, that men with bags are storming your security forces such that it puts them at risk? And again, do not miss that part that Tony said a minute ago. They placed these food distribution points into the area where the IDF is conducting offensive operations, not somewhere way far away from it where the Israelis wouldn't even be put at risk. No, they did it right where they have the offensive operations going on. So to then claim that when there's these corridors that are very tightly controlled, that the Palestinians apparently can't, or at least with great difficulty, go off, they're shooting them. And he says, when the sun comes up, then you see these bodies every day. It just keeps on happening. Look on the headlines of any of the Middle Eastern English language broadcasters. They'll publish something nearly every day of how many Palestinians were killed going to the food aid. It is torture. It is mental torment to know that if you don't get food, you're going to die of starvation. If you go to try to get food for yourself and your family, you risk being shot to death. I mean, it is beyond incredible. It's beyond crazy that is the conditions that are being created by policies put into place. And again, I don't care if anybody's insulted or their feelings are hurt by this, because I understand so many in America have this really good view of Israel for their whole lives. They've always been the island of stability in the middle of the chaotic Middle East, the democracy, the oasis of goodness, etc. All those kinds of things. And you can't have gone your whole life and believe that, and then to believe that same group, that same democracy could now be creating such heinous activities. And yet here you are faced with it. If you're not going to take my word for it, if you're not going to believe your own eyes, then believe Tony Aguilar, who has no axe to grind against Israel. He went over there because he wanted to help. He wanted to be part of the solution, and was so shocked and upset at what he saw and of our movement that he felt he could not stay silent. I certainly can relate to that. But that's where you have to come to your mind. Are you going to continue to blind yourself and just stop up your fingers to any of the evidence that's shown? Again, this is evidence. This is not just opinion. This is physical evidence provided with video right there that he took and his on the ground retaliation or recitation of what actually happened. And in fact, speaking of that issue on the starvation, that's where we started this. Benjamin Netanyahu said there is no starvation. We certainly don't have a policy for it. It's a bald-faced lie. That's what he said here. What does Tony Aguilar say on that topic?
I don't know if I could technically call it a famine because I don't know what those rules are, but I would call it starvation. So and I'm glad that the president of the United States came out last week yesterday on Politico and other outlets and said that he acknowledges and recognizes the starvation in Gaza. Thank you, Mr. President. That is exactly what's going on. The narrative of there's no starvation and there's no hunger going on in Gaza, that is negligent. That is shameful that anybody would say that. Not only is it evident to the world, I've seen it. So if you don't trust doctors and lawyers and aid workers and NGOs and Europeans and Westerners and Middle Easterners and all these people all over the world, Asians, everybody that's been in there that has seen this problem set. If you don't believe them, you can believe me.
And that's what you're going to be left with. Are you going to believe a guy who wanted to help out, who has 12 combat deployments under his belt, a full military career, special operations, has been around, seen it all, took his own life into his hands to potentially go and help other people who were in great need, and then comes back and reports it? Somebody who's very much pro-American is definitely not going to just say negative things about his country when he just retired from having served a whole lifetime, adult lifetime, in defense and service to our country, and putting his life on the line quite a bit in these combat deployments. Now, I know there's so many things out there. I've seen some of them roll through in the description already here in the commentary. A lot of people are listening to what's being said. Oh, there's no starvation going on. Like they're just people that were, it's not true. Yeah, lots of people walking around, but, I don't see skin and bones on all these people, so they're not starving. Because everyone you see isn't starving doesn't mean that there's not going on, or that there are plenty of others who are, because there's plenty of evidence of that too. So you can see somebody shows a picture of a strong guy and say, yep, there's no starving. And then you ignore all the other huge evidence to the contrary that says that there is. Or you can believe the likes of Ambassador Huckabee, who said this.
When we went to Gaza, I think there were a couple of big takeaways for both of us. One was that the GHF program, despite all of the criticism against it, most of it coming from the UN and from Hamas, interestingly, was unfounded. They're efficiently serving meals. They've already served over 100 million meals. That was one of the big revelations. But the second one, and this is an important one, is how inefficient the UN process is. Much of their food gets looted and stolen, and once it's stolen, then it's hijacked into contraband that the Hamas soldiers turn around and sell at ridiculously high prices. One of the things we heard from Gazans that we spoke to was their hope that Hamas can get out of there, can be done with. They're sick of it. And they know that their suffering is not being caused by Israel, despite what you hear on the international media. They're the ones who are telling us that their suffering is caused by Hamas.
You know what? One of the things, anyway, that really disgusts me about this kind of thing, and he's been making a number of these comments, is the virtual lack of concern about the millions of human beings that are on the receiving end of that. All he wants to do is regurgitate the talking points, the official talking points of the Israeli government, and somehow he feels like that's what he's supposed to do as U.S. ambassador, and just minimizes any of the reports of anything going on to the Gaza people. You want to look at here. So I know I hear people say, look, well, this is not like Auschwitz. You don't see skin and bones everywhere. It hasn't gotten to that point yet. Not on mass starvation. But there is tremendous malnutrition going on, especially among the children. I think 1 in 5 children are suffering severe malnutrition, which means they probably, a great portion of those will never recover. If the embargo is lifted tomorrow and the food starts going in at the normal pace, and that the war comes to an end and all that kind of stuff, they will never recover. A great many of them won't. The damage done is unbelievable. And that's just that particular aspect of it. You also have all the issues that are related to this with the destruction of the city itself. That was one of the things that Tony mentioned at the outset. This totality thing is all controlled by the Israeli side. There is no country on the planet that would ever be allowed to do to a captured population what the Israelis are doing to the Palestinians, and the world would not rise up against it. And that is the shame of our generation here, that we haven't. We in the United States, as Tony mentioned, we're enabling it. We're diplomatically providing cover, like Ambassador Huckabee just did. We're physically providing the means for the destruction to go on a daily basis. Without our tank rounds, without our artillery rounds, without the machine gun bullets, the missiles that they fire from their aircraft, this would not be able to go on. So we are physically and materially engaged in facilitating this. And there's all kinds of people around the world. I mean, you have Canada and in France and the UK. I've now said that, they're so repulsed by all this that they're going to recognize a Palestinian state at the UN General Assembly come September. Those are words, folks. No action. And a lot of these Arab regimes and others in the region that they say all these things that they're against, but nobody is willing to take any action. This will cumulatively be a shame for all of us. There will be people in the future that are just going to look back and say, what in the hell was wrong with that generation? You can put a lot of blame you can put most of the blame on Israel and a lot of blame on the United States, but nobody gets out of this because nobody with power is willing to use any of it. You have some people like Tony Aguilar who's willing to put his career and reputation on the line to say because he's coming under a lot of heat for this. Of course, anyone who says anything about the truth is going to come under heat because that's not the popular narrative that the governments in Israel and Washington want to have put out there. But you can only hide the truth so long. It is out there. This is happening. And this will be a stain on our reputation because now this whole thing about the city on a hill that we used to be the shining light and the torch of Lady Liberty and all that, that's done, folks. We have destroyed that. I mean, it's past tense now. It's already too late. It would take generations of doing it the right way to have a chance to recover that. But we can't even have that possibility until we first stop doing the bad stuff to stop the destruction of our own reputation. We can no longer tell somebody, don't do these immoral things. We can no longer tell some other country, don't abuse this population. They'll laugh at us. They'll mock us. And then I bet you they'll use the same tactics we do. They'll just say, oh, we're not doing that. No, that's the enemy. Fill in the blank, whoever the enemy will happen to be in that case. It's the enemy. We're not doing that. And they may even smirk in the camera, knowing that we're watching it and that they're repeating our own words back to us. So it also makes it easier for others all over the world, other powers, other dictators, other just wicked actors to act on some of their worst impulses. Because now they're not even restrained by what some others may say or the pressure that may come because they see that we are doing it on a grotesque level. This is going to harm us. We're not going to get out of this without stains. And it's going to be really, really hard to even try to get that stuff out there. And I pray to God on a daily basis, literally, not figuratively, that the suffering of these people who are utterly powerless to do anything about it, and they get no help from anyone in the world. I pray that somehow, somewhere, some nations, hopefully our friends, will find some courage, and if I can just say it, find the balls to stand up finally and do the right thing. Somebody who has some power to do something about it will take that action, because that's the only thing that's going to end this destruction. Otherwise, Israel will probably eventually succeed in either getting these people expelled, or they'll just start dying in large numbers. It's not going to be 60,000 or whatever the official number is over nearly 2 years. It could start to be in the thousands every week if this continues on. It's just math. You can't have that little amount of food for that many people with such a difficult distribution system, and they're not eventually turn into large-scale deaths. We're just going to have to wait and see how that's going to work out. But you know the truth now, and nobody's going to be able to hide from the truth in the future. It's out there right now. We're promoting it here. Tony Aguilar did there. Other channels are as well. The truth is out there, and we'll never be able to hide from it, or the shame who did nothing and stayed silent. That's what's supposed to have been meant by never again. And now here it is playing out before our eyes. That's all we got for you today, folks. We have Andrei Martyanov on this afternoon. There's been some developments, and we're kind of looking forward to what's going to happen this Friday when the 10-day deadline that Trump set for Russia expires. And, what's going to happen with all these tariffs. So always enjoy Martyanov today, 2 p.m. on the Daniel Davis Deep Dive. We'll see you then.